In episode 5, the king continues to go through his treatment while his wife wonders her future. That future is going to include a kid, but it's also going to include her mother-in-law. The princess, along with Lord Bute, bring over a physician to check out Charlotte, and he confirms that she is in fact with child. And when the princess hears this, she decides, that's it, I'm moving in. I need to make sure that everything is ready for the royal heir's arrival. That is not exactly what Charlotte wants. Charlotte is writing George quite a bit, and she's not receiving word back, which is really frustrating. She sends Brimsley to go give the message to Reynolds, and Reynolds tries to give the message to the king, but when he finally does see the king just says, put it with the others, because he's still going through treatment, even though he looks like he's in really bad shape. And when he says put it with the others, you find out that Charlotte's written him probably 20 times and hasn't received a response. And so the member of the family that Charlotte wants to be with her is gone. He's MIA. He's not returning notes. And the person from the family she wants nothing to do with is now living right down the hall. This is Charlotte's living hell. And it's not like the princess is being all that accommodating. In fact, she's kind of insulting. At one point, the princess is getting a portrait done, and she commands the painter to make her skin color more like it actually is, darker. But the princess stands up and says, no, I want it more pale, because she wants to hide how black her daughter-in-law truly is. When that happens, Charlotte writes another letter, but this time it's not to George, it's to Adolphus. And curiosity gets the best of Brimsley, so he decides to do something that he really shouldn't. He decides to open up and read it. And he finds out that the princess is planning on leaving. She's writing Adolphus because in order to leave, she needs a country to give her haven and a male protector. Brimsley doesn't know what to do. He knows that the queen can't leave. I mean, she's got to stick this thing out. So he goes and asks Reynolds, should I mail this? But Reynolds says nothing can be done. Post it. And what Brimsley was hoping Reynolds would say is, don't post it. I'll tell the king and he'll jump in and act. But Reynolds isn't about to do that. So Brimsley posts it, and a couple weeks later, Adolphus arrives. Brimsley allows Adolphus to talk to Charlotte privately. And this is the first time that Adolphus is finding out his sister is pregnant. But that's when she also tells him, I'm pregnant, but I want to go home. When Adolphus says, no, I can't do that, she reminds him that when she showed up, he said that he couldn't say no to the British Empire, and now she is the British Empire. She's commanding him to take her home. And Adolphus tries to explain to her that he can't take her home because he would be surely starting a war. She's carrying the heir to the British Empire. For her to flee and Adolphus to be an accomplice in that, it would bring war upon their small area of Germany. He's not about to do that. He then reveals why else it would be difficult for him to bring her home. When he negotiated her marriage, he also was able to include an alliance between his small province and Britain. So that small province is protected by the British Empire. Nobody's ever going to mess with them. And they really needed this alliance because there were other provinces that were gunning for him. So he kind of did this to save the people of the area. This news sucks for Charlotte because she's just been used. That night, Adolphus, Charlotte, and to her dismay, the princess all eat together. But Charlotte is completely despondent throughout the entire meal. As the trio is enjoying some music, the princess turns to Charlotte and says, your duty is done. You have conceived an heir. Now you're free. I mean, you never have to see my son again if you don't want to. That is, at least until we need another heir. That hurts Charlotte because it seems like everybody is basically just telling her that she's nothing more than either a pawn for an alliance or a pawn to make babies. There is one person who's looking out for Charlotte, and that's Brimsley. He's really concerned with her. He races over to Reynolds to talk to him, and he says, I've never seen her like this. You have to go talk to the king. But Reynolds just continues to shut Brimsley out. He does, though, go searching for the king after Brimsley leaves. And normally he gets shut out at the door, but this time he's not willing to do it. He bursts through the door to see exactly what they're doing to the king, and he's horrified. He tries to get him to stop, but the group of people just throw him out and continue to go through the treatment. It looks like there's just no hope. And after striking out with Reynolds, or at least so he thought, Brimsley the next day pleads with Charlotte, telling her, you can't leave England. She's going to need to get some advice from somebody, so she goes and meets with Lady Danbury. Danbury has had quite a busy few weeks. She buried her husband, and while she thought it would be an enjoyable experience because she hated him, she actually found herself grieving and then questioning why she was grieving. But there was a bigger issue at hand. While mourning, she gets a visit from a couple of lords, the Duke of Hastings, several other families, and they're all wondering the same thing. What happens now? They've all recently gotten this title because of the Great Experiment, but the first one to die was Lord Danbury. So they're worried that the titles will be taken away, and they won't be passed down through the bloodline, which is customary. But because they look different than everybody else, i.e. they're not white, they're wondering what exactly happens. They felt like they could come to Danbury with this because she is a trusted member of the court, and she has a son. Now, granted, he's only 4 years old, but he should become the new Lord Danbury. But then again, we're entering uncharted waters. She's going to have to ask the royal family. That is something she really didn't want to do, though. She takes her adorable 4-year-old over to the palace and explains to him that he is now the man of the family. He is the new Lord Danbury. And when she gets in front of the princess, she introduces her son as Lord Danbury. And initially, the princess says, "It's great to meet you, Lord Danbury," but she gets stopped by that D-bag, Lord Bute, who informs her that the question of inheritance is far from decided. So unfortunately, Lady Danbury leaves the palace not having any idea what happens with bloodlines inheriting titles. Now, it's not all bad for Danbury. One day, just to kind of clear her thoughts, she started walking. But she learned that she's not the only one who does this, because so does Lord Ledger. She's always been friendly with Lord Ledger, but they strike up a conversation, and they agree to meet the next day and walk. And then the next day they walk. And next thing you know, they're meeting up every single day to walk and talk, and they form a real bond. A bond that comes dangerously close to crossing a line. Now, Lord Ledger catches himself, and he walks back, knowing that he is married, he has a daughter, but he can't stop thinking about Agatha Danbury. So much so that he knows her birthday is coming up, and he makes her a hat. It's something that he does for everybody close in his life. It's really, though, just an excuse to go over to her house. And while they both know they shouldn't, they end up hooking up. And for the first time in her life, Agatha Danbury has sex and enjoys it. Suddenly, she's in a pretty good mood. She is surprised, though, when Queen Charlotte visits her, and Charlotte used the excuse of wanting to give condolences after Lord Danbury died. In reality, though, she came because she wants a place to stay. She's decided that she can't stay in the palace anymore. She needs to go home. And Lady Danbury feels for Charlotte, but she also knows that Charlotte's putting her in a really tough situation because she can't sit there and basically kidnap the queen. That's how it would be perceived. And it would end with her head off of her body. So she asks Coral to go get Brimsley and Adolphus. A short while later, they arrive back, and Charlotte doesn't want to see either of them. What she needs is a friend. She tells Lady Danbury, everybody in this country has betrayed me. They've lied to me, except one, you. And Lady Danbury sits down and says, I need a friend too. But up until this point, I haven't been your friend. I've been your subject. And that's on me. All I've done is look at you as a crown and nothing more. But for us to truly be friends, I think we need to start over. They agree in that moment to be friends. And then they have a conversation about what it's like being a woman in a man's world. This conversation helps Charlotte quite a bit, and when she leaves, she's in a much better mood. She also flips a switch. She goes from being a 17-year-old girl lost in a foreign country to being the Queen of England, an utter bad bitch. And the Queen decides to go get her man. She heads off to Kew, and she wants to know where her husband is. The doctor doesn't want the Queen to interject, but Reynolds is more than happy to say, I'll show you where the king is, because Reynolds struck out trying to get them to stop, but maybe the Queen will have some luck. And she does. When she sees what they're doing to the king, she is mortified. It takes a little bit, but she's able to get the king to at least remember who she is and kind of snap out of the funk he's in. She then commands her soldiers to pack up all of the doctor's things and make sure that he never returns. She's taking over. Now, the modern day queen, she has had some luck. She's been able to find 2 women to marry off to 2 of her sons, although they're not happy about it. They actually try to get their brother to interject because he is technically in charge and has to sign off on any marriages that go through the royal family. But the queen is actually in charge, and she says, do me a favor, approve your brother's marriages? And he says, yeah, okay, they're approved. So 2 weddings go down, and there's 2 chances at getting an heir to the throne. Over with Lady Bridgerton, she's going through a bunch of emotions. Lately, she's been feeling some things that she hasn't felt in a long time, and she's conflicted. The woman needs to get laid. I mean, she looks at a provocative painting, and she's getting a lady boner. She confides in Lady Danbury about this, but right away she gets embarrassed and stops. And Lady Danbury has to explain to her, what you're feeling is perfectly fine. I know, you love your husband. Everybody knows you love your husband. You don't shut up about him. But your husband hasn't been able to perform his husbandly duties in quite some time. So, girl, do yourself a favor. Go get some. It's perfectly natural. Thank you so much for checking out this recap. Please consider subscribing to the channel and subscribing to my Patreon. Hit thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that thumbs down button if you thought it sucked. If you left a comment, I don't get back to you. I usually don't check the comments unless they're like a super comment. Also, if you don't see the next video up on the end screen, not to worry, it'll be up in a day or 2.